I was born in a little town called Hope, Arkansas, 3 months after my father died. I remember living in that old two-story house where I lived with my grandparents. I remember going to my grandfather's grocery store and a big jar of Jackson cookies that were there on the shelf. It was a wonderful little small town where, you know, it seemed that everybody knew everybody else. And it was just segregated like all southern towns were then. And I remember my grandmother and grandfather opposing the closing of Central High School to keep black students out. They were for integrating the schools. It was interesting. My grandfather had a grade school education. And my grandmother had graduated from high school from a tiny little school out in Bodcaw, Arkansas.
His grandmother just valued education above all else. I mean, from the time Bill was in a high chair, she had, like playing cards tacked up on the drapes in the kitchen area where she fed Bill, and she would tell him what the numbers were, and she would read to him all the time, so that he was able to read at a really young age, in part because his grandmother valued it so much and helped him so much.
They didn't go around and see the world and become broad-minded. They did it out of the depths of their experience and their heart, and I was always really proud of them.
On August the 18th, 1946, I walked to the Malco Theater in downtown Hope to see a picture called Tomorrow is Forever. And it must have been prophetic, because the next day, Bill was born. You know, when you lose your husband, you never ever think you're going to get married again. Never. And I kept looking at this child and didn't feel that I was going to be able to earn enough money.
She went back to New Orleans to finish her nursing education. She became a nurse anesthetist. And it was, tough for her to leave me. And during this time she was away, one time my grandmother and I went down on a train to visit her. I remember we pulled out of the station and my mother kneeled at the side of the track and cried because she felt so bad that I was leaving. It's one of my most vivid memories of childhood.
Some people think that Bill must have been born wealthy and raised wealthy, then he had all of the privileges that you could ever imagine. Well, instead of being born with a silver spoon in his mouth, he was really born into a house that had an outhouse in the backyard.
My stepfather, as you know, we had some problems growing up, but he was very good to me.
Roger Clinton was an alcoholic, a good man, and if he ever loved anything in this world, it was Bill.
When I was in the 9th grade, I think he was, he got violent with my mother one night, and I just bulled through the door and told him he wasn't going to do that anymore. I just said,
"Stand up, I have something to say to you." And obviously he couldn't stand up. And so he got in his face and he said, "Daddy, if you're not able to stand up, I'll help you. You must stand to hear what I have to say." And some way or other he stood. And Bill told him then, "Don't you ever, ever lay your hand on my mother again."
I never stopped loving my stepfather or thinking he was a really good person. And later on, I wish I'd known more about human psychology as a child than I did, because I came to realize that he was a good person, and that the problem was not that he didn't love my mother or me or my brother. The problem was that he didn't think enough of himself.
My brother took over the leadership role in our family when he was just a kid. In old pictures, it seems like he always had his arm around me. When I was first starting school at the age of 5 or 6, he went down to the courthouse and had his last name changed to the same as mine. I have to smile when I hear my brother say in the campaign that we have to be one country, because that's the way he's always felt about our family. Religion was really important, and church going was really important to the two of us. He loved singing the hymns and the gospel music, and even to this day, it's an extremely significant part of his life.
Bill was always interested in current events. One morning, he couldn't have been more than 7 years old. He read where Arkansas was on the bottom in education. He remarked to me at the time, "If Arkansas will let me, one of these days I'm going to get us off the bottom." Well, you don't pay a lot of attention to a child saying something like that.
It was in July of 1963 that I went to Washington and met President Kennedy at the Boys Nation program. And he came out and, made a few little comments. We were all standing there in alphabetical order, so Arkansas was near the front of the line, and I was the biggest kid there. So I made sure that I got to shake hands with him. And I remember just thinking what an incredible country this was, that somebody like me who came from a little town in Arkansas who, had no money, no political position or anything, would be given the opportunity to meet the president.
When he came home from Boys Nation with this picture of John Kennedy and himself shaking hands, I've never seen such an expression on a man's face in my life. He just had such pride. And I knew then that government in some form would be his goal.
I was raised in a time when mothers would say they hoped their children would grow up to be president. I was raised to believe in this country, to believe in this system, to believe that elections were good things that gave people a chance to have their say and change the course of events.
One of my earliest memories is of my brother reciting Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech by heart from beginning to end.
It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream.
It's the greatest political speech of my lifetime. It was so powerful, it was so true, it was so moving, it was such a wake-up call for the country. I was heartbroken when Martin Luther King died. Washington burned. I was in school there then. I drove supplies down into the burned out part of the cities. It was a terrible time. And it just broke the hearts and spirits of millions of people. It was only 2 months later when Robert Kennedy was killed. Those two deaths, they changed a lot of things for my generation, for this country. And if both of them had lived, I think the last 20 years would have been a lot different for America and much better.
The first time I ever saw Bill Clinton, he was standing in the hallway outside the law library at Yale, which is this wonderful Gothic structure. And he was surrounded by all of these fellow classmates who were trying to convince him to be on the Yale Law Journal.
I said, look, I'm going home to Arkansas, and I'm not going to get a big Wall Street job. I'm not going to go clerk on the Supreme Court. I'm going home, be a country lawyer. I don't know if I want to be on the Law Journal.
And he was listening politely, but he was watching me because I was watching him, because I was in the law library at this long table studying. And I finally thought, this is, kind of silly.
And finally, she just put down the book she was reading and walked the entire length of the law library and walked up to me and she said,
if you're going to keep looking at me and I'm going to keep looking back, we at least ought to know each other. And I'm Hillary Rodham.
What's your name? Well, I couldn't remember my name.
I mean, I thought that he was great looking and he was fun and he was just somebody who challenged and made you happy all the time. I've just never met anybody like Bill.
She came to Arkansas, and we were driving around one day together, and we drove past this beautiful old house, and she talked about what a pretty house it was. There was a for sale sign in front of it. And I remember she went away somewhere, and I picked her up at the airport, and I drove her back, and I said, I bought that house you liked. She said, what? I said, that house you like, I bought it, so you better marry me because I can't live in this big house by myself. And that's when she finally said yes.
I think they deeply love and are committed to one another. And then they have the kind of, I don't know, what I like to call synergy. I mean, there's, the combination of the two of them makes a third element that is just irresistible as far as I can see.
Bill's becoming a father and having Chelsea was one of the really great experiences of his life because it was something his own father never got to do, never got to see his own child.
I was there when Chelsea was born, and it was still, I guess, the most incredible thing I've ever been through. I still remember how squunched up she was when she came out. I still remember how profoundly grateful I was that, Hillary was okay and that I had lived to see it. I mean, I was very aware at that moment that that's something that my father hadn't done.
He would just sit for hours and look at his daughter, trying to take in this miracle. But then he would do things that just would knock me out. I mean, I remember one day when Chelsea was like 3 months old, she was learning to roll over, and I was in another room, and he was watching her on the bed in our bedroom, and he yells at me, tells me to come in quick, and he says, look at this. And I thought he was going to tell me she was rolling over, which of course I knew, which I thought was sweet of him. But no, he was going to tell me, look at this. She rolls over the edge of the bed and then she rolls back. She must understand gravity. And I said, oh, right. And about 20 minutes later, I hear this plunk as my daughter unlearns gravity, right?
Sometimes my dad, to make me laugh, makes like funny faces, or he'll make funny sounds. And when I was little, when I would squeeze his nose, he would talk in a really weird voice. Whenever I play softball, that sometimes embarrassed me by jumping up and yelling and waving his hands, and sometimes he'll come over and talk to me during the game, but that's okay. What I would like America to know about my mother and father is that they're great people and they're great parents. They taught me that I had to think for myself, and they taught me to treat other people how you would want to be treated and follow the golden rule.
Once early in the campaign, when I'd been beat up a lot by the press, and Hillary and I went on national television and basically acknowledged that we'd had some problems in our marriage, and we were proud of the fact that we'd been able to keep it together. When the show aired, Chelsea wanted to watch it, so the three of us went upstairs and sat down and watched it together. It was pretty painful, to have your child watch that. And after it was over, I looked at her and I said, what do you think? And she said, I think I'm glad you're my parents. And after that, I knew whatever happened, it'd be all right.
When the history of this campaign is written, they may say, well, Bill Clinton took a lot of hits in this campaign. But I want you to know something. The hits that I took in this election are nothing compared to the hits that the people of this state and this country are taking every day of their lives under this administration. We no longer can have a country where I worry about me, you worry about you, they worry about them. That's the kind of country the Republicans have given us for more than a decade. We've got to be one country again, going up or down, together again.
Sometimes, late at night on the campaign plane, I'll look out the window and think how far I am from that little town in Arkansas. And yet, in many ways, I know that all I am or ever will be came from there. A place and a time when nobody locked their doors at night, everybody showed up for a parade on Main Street, and kids like me could dream of being part of something bigger than themselves. I guess there'll always be a sadness in me that I never heard the sound of my father's voice or felt his hand around mine. But all of us have sadness and disappointment in our lives, and hopefully we grow stronger for it. I know every day that I'm alive, I hope I'm a better person than the day before. I hope that every day from this day forward, we can be a nation coming together instead of coming apart. And I hope that we as a people will always acknowledge that each child in our country is as important as our own. I still believe these things are possible. I still believe in the promise of America. And I still believe in a place called hope.
We are ready for someone who is ready to fight for the average working families for a change. And let me tell you some of the things that Bill Clinton has done as governor of Arkansas. He went to work on education and health care and creating jobs. For the last 2 years in a row, his state has been number one in all 50 in the creation of jobs in the private sector. He has moved 17,000 people from the welfare rolls to the work rolls. He's balanced 11 budgets in a row while keeping his state's tax burden as the second lowest per capita in the entire United States of America. And the other 49 governors, Republicans and Democrats alike, voted him the best and most effective governor in the entire United States of America. That's the kind of leadership we need in the White House. We do have a new approach. We call it putting people first.
Well, we were rolling across the plains of southern Illinois at sunset, and we came around a bend, and I looked out, and there was this huge combine with a big Clinton Gore banner draped all over it.
people around waving their flags. And I got all choked up. I realized then that this campaign is carrying the heart of America. We're carrying the hopes of Americans.
I want you to believe that we can make America work again. This country has been around for more than 200 years because we live by hope and vision. And because every time we had to change, we have been able to change. And now you are being called upon, every one of you, to secure a better future for your children and your grandchildren, and to make America great again economically, educationally, and socially. Our campaign is not about trickle-down economics. We reject it. Not about tax and spend economics. We reject that. Our campaign is about making a commitment to put the government on your side, to give investment in new jobs, in education, in providing real leadership in controlling healthcare costs, in challenging the American people to take control of their own lives again, and making sure that when people do work hard and do play by the rules, they'll be able to win again. I am tired of seeing the American people get up and break their backs day in and day out to be ground down because we are in the grip of a failed economic theory. This country can do better, and I am determined to see that we do. We believe that we live in a world where what we earn depends on what we can learn, and therefore we have a commitment, this administration, to the fact that all children can learn, all adults must learn, and we're going to give you a real education presidency if you vote for us.
Education is the key to this whole country's future. That's why I think we need a program that's sort of a domestic Peace Corps. You can borrow the money, whatever your income, to go to college. But then you'd have to pay it back, either as a percentage of your income after you go to work, or even better, by giving a couple of years of your life to service here at home. You could be a teacher or a police officer, work with the elderly, people with disabilities, helping kids stay out of trouble, doing the work the community needs, paying off your college loan. It would be the best money we ever spent.
The government deficit, many manufacturing problems, many small business problems can be laid to the fact that we are seeing healthcare costs go up at 3 times the rate of inflation, and we are not addressing our most fundamental problems because we have stubbornly refused to cut out the tens of billions of dollars in waste that are going in to insurance profits and bureaucracy and regulation and drugs and unnecessary procedures. America must find a way to control health care costs and provide basic health care to all of our people. On welfare. We say we want to spend more money on your education and job training and child support and medical coverage for your kids, but then you got to go to work when you can. No more permanent welfare. Welfare is a second chance, not a way of life. That's what we want to do.
I have looked into the faces of tens of thousands of Americans reaching out for hope. They want to believe that things can be better for them. And in the first 100 days, my obligation is to show them that things can be better, to show some change, to show some movement, to open up some opportunity, to do it immediately, to really move, and I think we can do that.
At this juncture, America needs new leadership. Leadership that will address the pressing problems facing our citizens, problems that threaten our prosperity and our social fabric. There is no doubt in my mind that the national security of this nation depends first and foremost on its domestic strength, economic, industrial, social, and educational. Governor Clinton's approach to addressing these issues makes eminently good sense to me.
You know, I was responsible for Ross Perot's issues. I was the issues director for the campaign. I put together, under Perot's direction, his economic plan and began to put together the rest of the platform. Unfortunately, that was aborted when Perot quit in July. I still support much of what we did. I think we did very good work. The problem with the Perot plan is not the plan, it's Ross Perot. He didn't follow through. He didn't show the kind of leadership we need in a president of the United States. If you contrast that with Bill Clinton, he's been in it from the beginning. He's been tough, he's been articulate, and he's been specific. He's shown the American people that we need change and what kind of change we need. In fact, if you look at his plan, and of course I've looked at it very carefully, it's a very sound plan, it's a very complete plan, and it will get America moving again. It will create jobs, and it will make this economy grow.
I think what's at stake here is an opportunity for a real change that is very badly needed by the American economy. The Bush policies simply have not worked and are not working, and there is no reason to believe that they will not be continued in the next administration. Clinton, Gore bring a real opportunity for positive change.
I think Bill Clinton is a new kind of a Democratic candidate. 400 CEOs, traditionally Republicans, lifetime Republicans, have switched and come out for Bill Clinton. That says a lot about Bill Clinton, and I think they trust him to work to get the economy moving again.
The central issue is economy and jobs and employment, and Governor Clinton has addressed those issues. He has a plan. President Bush does not have a plan.
We've got a problem in this economy, and it's going to require a president with a plan and a vision and the energy to want to implement that plan. I've been a Republican my whole life. I voted for George Bush in 1988. I'm not voting for him this year. I'm voting for Bill Clinton because Bill Clinton has a plan, and I trust Bill Clinton to lead this nation into the 21st century.
I'm looking for a change, and Clinton gives me the change that I'm looking for.
He stated, unconditionally, this is what he's doing, so there's no hidden agenda, which is something new in politics for me.
I think that Bill Clinton has a good plan when it comes down to health care, child care, and welfare reform.
Well, the main thing I like about his economic plan, it looks out for just regular people.
I think Bill Clinton has the best program for building jobs in this country. I think he's done it in his state, and I think he's proven that he can do it, and that he'll do it for the country.
Clinton is the man who can make it happen and make things work in terms of getting a program that serves all people, not just the wealthy.
Clinton is a people person, and he actually knows what us working class citizens are going through at this moment with the recession.
I think Governor Clinton has vision. I think he's compassionate. I think he's a leader. I think he's what our country needs.
I think Governor Clinton has a plan that will work.
Governor Clinton definitely has a plan for the future. He's got great ideas, and he's going to put this country back on its feet.
I'll vote for Bill Clinton because I think he has a much better plan than President Bush does.
I hope you now have a sense of my plans for our country, where I come from, and what the work of my life has been. I hope it will help to guide the decision you face. And when you walk into that voting booth tomorrow, I hope you'll ask yourself this question: can you afford 4 more years of the same old thing? Or together will we have the courage to change? For in the end, the choice you face is clear. It's a choice between fear and hope, between drift and action, between the status quo and change. Change is never easy, and I'm sure not promising that any of our problems will be solved overnight. But I do know this: unless we begin now to make these changes, our children could become the first generation of Americans to do worse than their parents. It doesn't have to be that way. America's better than that. And the end of the Cold War can bring us the most peaceful, prosperous, exciting time in our history if we have the courage to change. If you agree with me that we need change, then I need your help. And not just tomorrow, but the day after tomorrow, and every day after that. Because the job of changing America doesn't end on Election Day. It just begins there. I want to be your president, but you have to be Americans again. Not just getting, but giving. Not placing blame, but taking responsibility. Not just looking out for yourselves, but looking out for each other too. I believe America is a nation of boundless hopes and endless dreams. And the only limit to what we can do is what our leaders are willing to ask of us and what we are willing to expect of ourselves. I believe in America. And tomorrow, if you make me your president, I'll work my heart out to make the American dream real for all our people. Together, we can do it.
I may not have all the answers, and I won't always tell you what you want to hear, but I will wake up every day thinking about you and your interests and your hopes and your children and your future, and that's what you need in the White House.